I'm Jason Klom, and this is Comedy on Vinyl. The year is 1960, the album The Wonderful World of Jonathan Winters. The artist, of course, Jonathan Winters, and my guest this week, Merle Kessler. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I'm delighted to have you. For those who do not know you, they may know you as Ian Shoales. They may know you as a member of the Duck's Breath Mystery Theater. You've done a lot of stuff. But why don't you tell me, first of all, how long you have known this record? Is this something that was in your house growing up? Did you discover it later in life?
Well, no, my parents joined the Columbia Record Club.
Yes, okay.
Which is still around, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And they let me, as I recall, pick pretty much all the records.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was in the pile, I guess, that I picked, along with Marty Robbins, Gunfighter Ballads, and
Wow.
yes, a bunch of good stuff.
Was this the first comedy record then that you picked out of all of them?
First, yeah, I think I would say Smothers Brothers. No, I got Kingston Trio.
Oh, okay.
Which had some comedy on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it was actually the only comedy record in the batch. The rest were like folk songs. Fronte and Teicher, I think, was in there too. And
Wow, that is not what I know of.
They did Exodus. Remember, da, da, bum bum. They were bombastic piano players. And what else? Johnny Horton. Battle of New Orleans and all that kind of stuff. But I think that was the only comedy record in the batch.
I love it. We've talked briefly, whenever we talk about an album, half the time it is briefly because we end up getting into other stuff. We have talked about this record, I think once before, maybe with Rick Overton. I don't know how much detail we actually got into, but if anybody doesn't know, Jonathan Winters was famous for being an improviser. He obviously has some prepared bits, but he also insanely off the cuff. Nobody was really doing that as a standalone act anyway. Even Nichols and May had written stuff based off of their own improv. Some of this is completely, like, he does take a suggestion from the audience. It's even that level of improv at some point.
What's cool about him is his material was not, I'm trying to, like Nichols and May was all like realism kind of, you know what I mean? It's like
Sure.
a life in New York and that kind of thing. Whereas his stuff is just like Robin Hood and
Mm-hmm.
World War II and
Mm-hmm. It's much more of a sketch album in a way.
Well, yeah, and also he went out there, as they say,
Mm-hmm. And he's pretty. He does it in his typical kind of burying it, kind of nervous way, but he does. And I don't know that the audience takes him seriously, where he talks about being institutionalized, and that's a quite, like, I think at this point, well-known actual part of his history as a person.
At the time, I recall that because I was a huge fan of his just from seeing him briefly on, whatever he'd be on TV,
Mm-hmm.
and it was big news. It was in like Time magazine,
Mm-hmm.
It was in San Francisco too, as I recall. He,
okay.
He it was after he was at the, Purple Onion or whatever, he was doing a show and then he just had a total breakdown. He went down to Fisherman's Wharf and he climbed aboard a ship and he went, as I recall, and he climbed up on top of like the crow's nest,
Mm-hmm.
and had to be talked down, and then he was institutionalized for a month or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a total breakdown, total nervous breakdown. It was and it was on national news. It was in Time magazine, so it was. I was aware of it, and I was like 11, 12 years old.
What had you? What kind of stuff had you seen him on? What shows were you allowed to watch? Like, I'm not sure how late. I'm not sure if he was on stuff other than like late night. He must have been done Sullivan.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
but...
have watched the late shows. So I think it must have been. I was thinking because I don't know if I got. See, I grew up in North Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
so we only had one station.
Goodness
and,
gracious.
and they sort of swapped off. Like half of it was NBC, half of it was ABC. So I didn't get Ed Sullivan, which I think was on CBS.
Okay.
So it must have been like one of those variety shows that they're all over.
Yeah.
But I did see him. He was on TV quite frequently, as I recall, because he was a very entertaining guest.
Yeah. Were you a kid who was hunting out comedy, or did you know that comedy albums existed? Because some people do have that moment where they kind of discover, oh, I can have something to keep for myself.
Well, I didn't know anything. You know, we didn't, like I said, I grew up in North Dakota. There was not much of a media thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like bits on the radio and that sort of thing. I think when we got the Columbia Record Club catalog, I was excited. So, you could see, I could get this guy, I can get this, these, a song I heard once on the radio,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course.
And that's sort of what it was. It wasn't, I wasn't aware that there were comedy records. Of course, after that, there was kind of an explosion with, Bob Newhart and, and all that stuff, but I wasn't really aware of it at the time. It wasn't until I moved away from North Dakota to the great media center of Brainerd, Minnesota, where I, learned of the existence of a wider world of media and comedy.
More than one channel, etc.
More than one channel, yes. And also, I wound up getting like Bill Cosby records and Smothers Brothers, whom I adored.
Of course, yes.
I still think they're funny,
Oh, they're brilliant.
Bill Cosby, not so much, but
the
Smothers Brothers were he becomes cloying after a while,
Also true.
But the Smothers Brothers are still really hilarious, I think.
I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who I didn't realize when we got into it. I didn't realize why he picked the Smothers Brothers at the Purple Onion, but it's because he had gotten to open for them right in their last year of performing. And I was like, so jealous. And he's like, yeah, they were still on top of their game. I'm like, I'm not surprised. I saw them in 2003. They were just doing great, like, anti-Bush jokes and then, playing with the yo-yo 10 minutes later. It was fantastic. It was so good. What about Jonathan Winters appealed to you? I mean, I think I know, like, it's probably, appropriately the same kind of thing that appealed to me about Robin Williams when I was a kid, just a sort of frantic energy and like, oh my God, I wish I could be that funny. I wish I had that kind of energy.
Well, see, it came in with like my own personal, like, I felt kind of out of it because I was a sensitive lad
Mm-hmm.
in North Dakota, and so you found things that seemed to reflect kind of an outsider kind of sensibility. Like I also at the same time, I think I've discovered Mad Magazine, like the old old Mad Magazine that Harvey Kurtzman did with Will Elder and just these great dense storylines, and there's the same kind of spirit there, I think, too, of like let's just throw it in there, if we can do it, then we should do it. Kind of attitude that really appealed to me.
It's sort of the thing about Mad Magazine that, I mean, it definitely, if you're a kid with the kind of energy who wants to keep creating or is always thinking about fun ideas or is just kind of all over the place, something like Mad Magazine is a place that weirdly brings all those interests into one place and synthesizes them in a way where it's like, oh, this might be me. This might be my personality put on paper.
Yes, and also these were like anthologies, so this is like a dead thing.
Sure,
really,
yeah.
That I was getting. They're like little paperbacks of this Mad Magazine that didn't exist anymore. I mean, I still enjoyed the Mad Magazine that was out there. I used to read that too, but it wasn't the same magazine at all. I mean, these early Mad Magazines were just really out there,
Right.
So that appealed to me, and also around the same time, my parents joined a book club.
Mm-hmm.
And they got this book. One of the books they got was The Most of S.J. Perelman.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a comedy writer, not as well known, I guess, as James Thurber and these other guys, but he used to write for Marx Brothers and,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that also like had a huge influence on me because this book, these things were just amazing. He had the same kind of manic energy, only it was literary and controlled, he has this, anyway, it was the same sort of thing that really appealed to me. He seemed to have like an encyclopedic knowledge of American culture. This, of course, he wrote in the 30s and 40s mainly.
Mm-hmm.
But you could read his parodies of plays and movies and things like that, and you get the feeling what the movie was.
Right.
Which is a Mad Magazine kind of thing that you don't need to see the original because the parody is sort of more interesting. You know what I mean?
Fair, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So I think that had a lot to do with the appeal of Jonathan Winters as well, because he was into that, like he had the whole thing of Robin Hood and all that kind of thing, where your observation on the thing is part of now the thing that's being observed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely does. And
Yeah.
I love that. That's fascinating to me whenever, you discover something through a different method that it's intended to be, ingested. Do you remember getting this record in the mail for the first time, opening it up?
Well, not that specifically, because it was all of them, So it was
Sure.
like I listened to this record, I listened to that record, and but yeah, I listened to it over and over again. It was that one and I think yeah, there was like 8 records I think altogether I got,
Hmm.
and one of them like a Brothers 4 record that was like not very good, so I didn't listen to that stuff very much. But yeah, the Kingston Trio, Jonathan Winters and Marty Robbins, I listened to a lot over and
Okay.
over again. Yeah.
This record I had never noticed until just now. Um, on the very back, there's a program. It tells you obviously all the tracks that are on it, which, by the way, for a full length album, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks on it. The final track is 13 minutes. But it lists not only the cast, so the characters he plays, but
Mm-hmm.
every sound effect that he does,
Yes.
which is remarkable to me. It's like, don't forget, this guy is crazy, and he can do just about anything with his mouth.
Yeah, it's a very dense record, though. I mean, it's not. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot going on. He's got World War II. He's got Robin Hood. He's got being institutionalized.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has like little ad libs to the audience, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And he's also it's also a glimpse into his personality. It's weird. Years later, happened to be in L.A. for I forget what for something, and it just so happened I was in it was in a conference center or something like that. Anyway, but Jonathan Winters was there for some comedy gathering. It was almost like, I can't remember what it was, like science fiction, one of those kind of things, a
Sure.
con of some sort.
Uh-huh.
And he was being interviewed, and I just happened to, overhear this interview. I was saying, I'll position myself so I can hear him talk to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really great. For about 20 minutes, he just gave this interview to a guy from I think from the San Francisco Chronicles, it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was great because he's a very he's not like a wacky guy at all,
Right.
So and one of the things he said to this interviewer, which I thought was funny, is like, I'll be able to talk to you about being on all the time, you're always being wacky and being on, which he wasn't at the time. And he said, well, would you rather I be off? What do you want from me?
Yeah, right?
Exactly. But I thought that was sort of interesting, and you could feel that in the record too. That he was like, he felt an obligation, I guess, to make it, as entertaining as he could, which I guess makes sense given he's a entertainer.
For sure, but the amount of obviously a ton of pressure. Something I didn't know before today, though, is that, again, and this could be apocryphal. I need to look up the source of it. But have you heard the story that his career essentially started with a wristwatch?
No, I didn't.
Have you
hear
heard
that at
this?
all.
Okay, so again, anybody, if this is incorrect, I apologize, but it seems to be sourced. It's from Wikipedia, so take what you will, take it how you will. But long story short, he had lost his wristwatch. He no longer had one. Desperately needed one. This was in a time, of course, folks, in case you can't remember, when watches were needed to tell the time. And supposedly, his wife saw an ad that there was a talent contest. The prize was a watch. He went down, won it, and got a watch, and also became a DJ based off of that. And you can imagine how, if that's your trajectory and you have no intent on necessarily being an entertainer, that it would overload you, and that 8 months into your skyrocketing fame, you might need to settle down for some time in a facility.
Yes, well, and also he was a Marine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and every time I read stories about Marines, like they did not have an easy time of it. And,
Of course not. No, yeah.
And they're all like, it could be about like who else am I thinking? Oh, Lee Marvin was a Marine,
Oh yeah. Uh
and he was a total mess.
huh. Uh huh.
Um, I can't remember anyway, but I mean, I think that would have a lot to do with it as well. The PTSD and all that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
PTSD combined with Jonathan Winter's bipolar diagnosis
Yeah,
is just like
exactly.
that's a recipe. When treatment wasn't a thing, when it was still, I think at this this is a point where people start talking about analysis in their comedy bits, but it's still kind of a joke, and it's still not something that's necessarily taken seriously. It's like, oh, this is some new quackery half the time. So yeah, that's pretty fascinating that. Yeah, he just openly talks about it on this comedy record. But again, does it in a way where the audience is like, oh, ha,
Well,
ha, ha, ha.
well, yeah, he doesn't talk about he does it in a funny way.
Yes, absolutely.
He doesn't diminish it, but he also doesn't. It's not like a Nichols and May therapy routine.
Right,
Right.
right.
Exactly. It's like for one guy's the therapy, and the other person's the he doesn't go into that sort of thing at all.
Mm-hmm. No, he just basically, he briefly mentions that he said that he was insisting his name was John Q from outer space.
That's right.
When he had his breakdown.
Left the mothership and they caught me. That's right. Yeah.
There's one quick bit on that where he just says something to the effect of, "This is a Martian. I hope I speak your language," which I thought was, and this
Yeah.
is a recording. I thought that was a pretty good bit.
Yes.
Do you?
It's a good bit, and it keeps and it's still fresh because it's all like it's not tied to anything. It's all tied to this little stories he tells.
Yeah,
rather
most of these are
than,
about subjects rather than any current events. So it wasn't really, other than, hey, I was in World War II. Let me tell you a story about it. Everything else
Yes,
is pretty.
First Lieutenant Matthews. Yes, I've met so many of that guy over the years too. And he sort of encapsulates certain types of personalities just in a line, which is really amazing to me too.
Yeah, I mean, there's this element where he talks about growing up in the part of Ohio that he grew up in, where clearly, at least in his estimation, there were a ton of hillbillies. And listening to him do...
Which way is your machine faced?
And it sounds like maybe you can relate to that. I know I certainly
well,
can.
yeah,
So.
I was a total hick. I mean, you can't get more hicky than North Dakota, really. So I related to all that stuff too.
Yeah. There's this element of growing up, if you grow up in especially someplace super rural, at least like I did, I think any time where somebody's putting together a complete sentence to a group of seemingly sophisticated people and getting laughs, you're like, that's the most metropolitan thing I've ever heard. I want to do that.
Well, yeah, that appealed to me as well. I mean, I think I could recognize a kindred spirit, in this, like I'm a smart person among idiots, not that desperate, but
Sure.
I mean, I'm not like these other people.
Yeah.
I like to read books and see things. But yeah, there's all the stuff that you would see on television. I keep my big example I always give is Perry Mason, which we didn't get.
Yeah.
But if we go visit like relatives, they would have like more stations than we did, and I'd see like Perry Mason, like, wow, what a world that is. Like they're driving cars in big cities, and there's adultery and all sorts of weird adult things going on that we don't have in North Dakota. Well,
Right,
of course
right.
we did. So Jonathan Winters is like a guide to that world too, the world of nightclubs and people who pay money, to come see you talk.
Yeah.
And that was weird to me too.
He's from bordering on, or perhaps the last generation to not have as much growing up, not have as much influx of the concept even of that other world, to the point where his observations are very clearly, country mouse to city mouse. Like it's so stark that I think that's probably one of the reasons that he can make these strong observations and keep them funny.
Well, also he wasn't, this is, kind of a weird thing to say, but he wasn't Jewish, because a lot of comedy were like smart ass Jewish guys from New York, or Bob Hope, who was like
Sure.
the epitome of that. I'm reading a book about vaudeville, and they talk a lot about Bob Hope, who was the guy that moved comedy away from the baggy suit comic.
Yeah.
Instead, now you got this hip guy who gets laid and he drinks and he knows what's going on, and he's telling jokes to you, and it was sort of a shift in where you could, and so Jonathan Winters, I think, is part of that too, where it opened up this world of people who could be comics that that weren't before. I mean, you could be a goofy guy and now who did this at parties, and now you can make a living doing that as well.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because now that you point that out, like even if you listen to Newhart's first album, there's this, I don't know, almost this milquetoast dorkiness, but at the same time, he is kind of hip. He's a pretty hip guy, even if he is playing a nerd in a sketch, or even if he's mumbling through his stuff too. It is this weird combination that I can't quite figure out.
Well, it's like what Steve Martin did. If you had read his, because I remember reading Steve Martin's book. I thought it was really interesting, really cool book. It was like how I did what I did,
Yeah.
And I read that at the same time I read. No, I'm sorry, I got a senior moment here. George Carlin book.
Yeah.
And it's the contrast between these two people, which is really interesting. To sort of get to the same place where Steve Martin is like this very cerebral guy.
Yeah.
Who lit on, well, goofiness is the way to go to, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And Carlin is sort of like the opposite, where it's like this goofy guy who started out like as a pretty much, run-of-the-mill, not run-of-the-mill, he was pretty good, but just a standard issue comic,
Yeah.
But the, button down, making observational humor and that kind of stuff, and then became this LSD-driven guy,
Right.
And it was kind of interesting to see the contrast between these two people coming from the same tradition, pretty much.
Oh, for sure, yeah. That's always fascinating to me. Carlin, especially he sort of had roughly three periods of his career, which is definitely, that straight-laced dude in a suit to kind of becoming a hippie and being a hippie to then angry old man in black. That is
exactly.
Holy shit. He's a fascinating dude who definitely developed. Whereas, somebody like Winters, that guy to the end of his life seemingly was just, no, I'm just going to be crazy. And I say crazy in a fun way. I'm just going to be nutty and just keep doing voices and bits. Seemingly, I wouldn't be surprised if he was doing it to the moment he died. Like
yeah. And I actually knew a guy, I can't remember but when I went to college in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and he had a war buddy that lived there, and I guess they used to go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was what a great thing to know about Jonathan Winters, is he likes to go fishing.
Yeah.
Because I used to read about. I'm a fan of blues music, and I was reading about Howlin' Wolf. Who also used to like to take fishing trips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get off this tour. Let's go fishing. And it's a really relaxing thing for kind of like an intense performer to do.
It's true, especially if, again, growing up in a type of place you grew up, or where I grew up, where there is this idea, especially if you read more about them and see more about them, it's like this was their life. This was their life. Where you do not picture a blues man, you do not picture Jonathan Winters, you don't picture a lot of people taking a break to go fishing and just sitting there with a beer in a boat. I don't know. It's not part of what you picture. Is that part of that?
No.
You forget that as a side of that huge metropolitan funny person or blues singer is somebody who just needs to get the fuck out for a few days and chill.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, where'd you grow up, by the way?
Upstate New York.
Oh, okay.
So bordering on a metropolitan area, but the part I was in was just so tiny that literally the quote unquote city that was 5 miles away felt like ages away.
Right.
It was weird, very weird. So records were my way out, even though I was listening to records that were, created 30, 40 years before I was born. That's just how it went. I had not, or maybe I've called it out before, but I noticed again anyway that on the bit about the Western, where he talks, at some point he does a baby voice and he says "Nini Nanu Nana," which I'm like, holy shit. Okay, I guess it's quite clear where Robin Williams got that bit. Anyway, Okay, so that would be something I'd be interested in. Did you know, as a younger gentleman, that Robin Williams was heavily influenced by? I don't know if you were a fan of Robin Williams, but I'd be curious to know what you thought of him.
Not as much as I was. He always made me nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
He sweated too much. Whereas Jonathan Winters, You know what I mean? Like he was always like working too hard. I thought, but
I mean,
I'm not to say he wasn't funny,
no, of course,
but he's just exhausting. Whereas
yeah,
I
cocaine will
never
do
got
that.
exhausted by Jonathan Winters.
Lots and lots of cocaine will do that. I mean, that is clearly, and he admitted it. He fully admitted it. We were, not to repeat a thing I keep talking about, but it's very funny. Somebody picked the Comic Relief 1986 album, a quote-unquote best of. Boy, oh boy, that is a rough watch. That is, you want to talk about people like, and again, this is supposed to be their A material. We talked about the funniest thing that was on there was Carl Reiner and Sid Caesar, and they were doing a 20-year-old bit.
Right, yeah.
Pretty funny. Do you have a favorite piece on this whole album? Is this an album also that you had memorized at some point? It sounds like you must have.
Well, there's bits of it I still remember. Like, like First Lieutenant Matthews, I'd like to go with you, men, but they need me here, that. So there's lines that come up as appropriate, but also, yeah. And also there's one line, yeah. Robin, Princess Mary Louise is over in the castle, which always cracks me up, and I have no idea why.
I love when he'll do
there's lines that pop into my head from time to time, but
when he'll do a little gentle voice though, as like a sort of like a just as a contrast to the normal manic energy that he's got, where he's burning through these ideas, Yeah,
that's the thing. Like Eddie Izzard understands that too.
Oh,
he was like another guy who seemingly manic, but it's all pretty controlled,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And but yeah, you understand that if you go da, 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 and then you go da, 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 it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get so exhausted,
Right?
Whereas Jonathan Winters, Robin Williams never dialed it down.
Right. I'm gonna need to re-listen to some. It's been a while since I've listened to Robin Williams like with intent. I now need to maybe dig through a few more Jonathan Winters just to hear. Because also supposedly he was Robin Williams was a big fan of. Dick Shawn, also Dick Shawn. But yeah. You can hear that.
There's
in
a guy I
too.
used to love too. Yeah, but he was also he would push too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's the best thing about Mad World. I think.
Oh my God.
That whole character.
Yeah.
I'm coming, Mama. Because that's Jesus Christ, what a horrible movie, in my opinion.
It's one of those
people love it, but God Almighty.
I think a lot of people love it because of nostalgia, and it's got a lot of very famous people in it.
But it's just not funny. They're just all they do is like, except for Dick Shawn, who's hilarious.
Good God.
And Jonathan Winters they're not letting him be Jonathan Winters in it. They're all just like, you gotta get it. Oh, I want this. It's all just one note and horrible.
Yeah. Speaking of the Robin Hood bit, there's a very dumb joke that really gets me because I'm a child at heart, which is where he makes a like that, and then he says a group of horny men running through the forest, and he just says it so quickly, and it's a toss off, and he gauges the audience because they're like, I don't remember if that's the groaner. There's one definitely, or not groaner, where the audience is like, we don't know if we're comfortable with this joke. There's one and I should have written it down, but there's definitely one where they're like, oh, whoa, can you make that joke? Where it felt weirdly uncomfortable, but I was proud of him. It's just like, good for you, Jonathan Winters. I like that you're pushing your material out there. I like the energy of this album a lot. It is really hard. You cannot inactively listen to this. You have to sit down and listen to it. I almost tried to do something else while listening. Dumb idea.
Yeah, it's very engaging, and I've listened to other records by him, and it doesn't really quite have the energy this one does. I don't know why, but
yeah, it's interesting.
Well, because of the Mod Frickert stuff, which is like, sort of, okay, all right, that's a joke.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of those bits where like it's always interesting when somebody finds a character that people love, which I'm assuming, I'm guessing people loved it from Steve Allen, because I know he was like Steve Allen's like favorite, but where it becomes like, maybe this is my meal ticket, where it's like, no, your meal ticket should probably just be you being Jonathan Winters all over the place.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know that because I had Ian Shoales, which is sort of like became a thing that kind of took over my life. And also we had Dr. Science too in
of
Duck's
course,
which had a but those are a little bit different because they didn't really didn't have to do that, but there weren't people going, "Come on, do Ian Shoales,"
But if you find a thing that works, and like I get it, like it's not necessarily falling into a groove, but it is finding a finding a fictional voice can be just as powerful as like when a stand-up
Oh
finds
yeah.
their natural voice.
Well, I keep thinking of Ernest, Ernest P. Worrell.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, I really think he's funny. I
do
used
too.
to watch his movies with my daughter, and I thought they were great.
Yeah.
It's like, which I guess it's the hick in me too again, because it's
might
real
be part of
hillbilly
it, yeah.
humor there.
And hey, that's another career that also got started in a weird way. We hear he was doing ads for local ice cream.
Yeah. That was he was the Ernest P. Getting people to buy used cars and stuff. But bless his heart.
Which is why it always blew me away when he would do a part that was not at all that. When he would not.
Oh
do a
yeah, he would
character.
always go on like Merv Griffin and then do like a Shakespeare soliloquy or something. It was hilarious.
It's so good. It's a surprise like that is more than welcome, especially since he's making his career in a time where no, you stick with your character and you'll make your money. Where usually they seem to not want to do that, which I appreciate. I respect that.
Well, it's a link back to vaudeville too, where you'd have
sure.
these these guys that go around. They just did one thing. They'd have like a 10-minute slot, and they just do like that character, or Buster Keaton being thrown around by his dad,
Right.
until he said, "Look, I'm 22 years old, Dad. I can't do this anymore."
I gotta go stand in front of a train, Dad.
Exactly.
Can I, please. Yeah, it's the thing about vaudeville, and I know there are exceptions, but yeah, it was also a time when, my 10-minute bit is my same 10-minute bit for 2 decades. You don't.
Yes, exactly.
And that blows my mind and hurts my brain and makes me feel like I would want to blow my brains out. I don't know, but maybe I would have loved it. Who knows?
Well, some did, and some didn't. I'm just reading a book, A History of Vaudeville. It's really interesting by Trav S.D. Yeah, this is not his real name, of course.
Of course.
But it's pretty entertaining and informative. It's kind of interesting.
I'm gonna have to check that one out. That sounds
it's good. It goes from burlesque into vaudeville, and then how radio and the movies kind of destroyed it all.
Right. That's fascinating. I kind of want to know a little bit. Okay, so you go from North Dakota straight to Brainerd. Is that correct? And
Yes,
then,
as made famous in Fargo.
Yes, of
the movie
course.
Fargo, yes.
Of course.
Which is more about Brainerd than it was Fargo, really.
It's true, right? That's where most of it takes place. So I want to know what your comedy development was from a comedy fan as a kid who's memorizing bits off of Jonathan Winter's record to making your own, because everybody's journey is a little different.
Well, it's weird because I didn't think I'd be going into comedy at all. I mean,
Sure.
I'd like to write humorous things, and I would write things that would sort of like trying to be like James Thurber or something like that, but I didn't think I was, because I wanted to be a serious writer, sort of what I wanted to be.
Okay.
Then I went to the Writers' Workshop in Iowa, the fiction workshop, and I really didn't like it at all.
Interesting. Okay.
I said, geez, I don't know this deal. So I switched over to I stayed there and I got my degree, but I also started going to the Playwrights Workshop. So I wound up getting 2 master's degrees in writing. But anyway, while I was doing the Playwrights Workshop, which appealed to me a lot more, because I met this guy, Dan Coffey, who wound up becoming a partner in Duck's Breath, and we started just doing, let's just do plays. We just would write plays and do them you'd write plays and do them in the student union, or find a bar, And then we met Jim Turner, another guy in the Ducks, who was Randy of the Redwoods, and he's a working actor in L.A. And then Jim and Leon, Bill and Leon, were both in the directing program there.
Okay.
And the 4 of us, Jim was still an undergraduate, and we decided, well, what are we going to do? We don't have any prospects. So we were doing some of these shows, and we just decided to just keep doing it. So the idea was like not so much as the comedy as a way to make a theater on its feet,
Okay.
And do our own stuff and just make a living, like passing the hat, basically.
Yeah.
So that was the impulse of it. Just make our own opportunity. And then comedy, of course, seemed like the best way to go because you were going to be doing this in bars.
Sure, of course.
So the impulse is more the performative creation thing than the comedy thing. But the comedy came about just because that's how you make stuff. And I realized that that's the writing I like the most anyway. Is when it's funny rather than trying to make me cry.
Right. Is there, so I mean, obviously everybody's influences are varied. So it sounds like Jonathan Winters, though, is one that just is kind of buried in the back of your mind as it becomes a part of you, I would assume, not a direct influence.
Well, I would say he was pretty direct. I would say,
okay.
I have a, S.J. Perelman, that guy I mentioned before, was a huge influence, and Jonathan Winters and Mad Magazine. I mean, and also, what was I'm trying to just make? Oh yeah, and also the James Thurber, all these like New Yorker writers, all these guys. Yeah, they were all. It's all sort of like that's what I think made my humor. It's all a melange of all this kind of stuff, But I wasn't really. I never really liked stand up that much. Firesign Theater too. A huge fan of theirs. Monty Python, not so much. I think I came to them a little too late.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, you got to catch them in your teens, to be fair. I think.
Yeah, yeah. It was like we were actually just started doing Duck's Breath, and people kept comparing us to Monty Python. So no,
It's because they didn't have any other comparison, I bet.
I'd heard a couple of cuts of their stuff, but this is just before they started appearing in America, So we weren't even that familiar with them. They were just then starting to be on public television.
Sure, yeah.
And I'd heard a couple of their, because a friend of mine is a huge, Anglophile, so we had a couple of their British records.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing I'd heard, and I was, that's all right, but it's, They're no Beyond the Fringe. Beyond the Fringe is another big influence.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So yeah, for listening, I was never listening to comedy to. I listened to it just because I like to listen to comedy. I wasn't so much listening to it to. How did they do that? I want to do it that way,
Right.
Because when I looking for sources for humor, I look to idiot things people say,
Yeah.
and make fun of that,
Yeah. I mean, that is, to be fair, that's Jonathan Winters' style. He just had a different delivery than most. His stuff is weirdly observational. It just becomes these stories that, again, sketches. There's not I was talking to somebody the other day and we were talking about, but can there be a one-man sketch? And honest to God, Jonathan Winters is the argument for that.
Yeah. He would make this little world of, the Robin Hood, the thing is, because he just creates this, and it seems like it's a parody, but it's like this weird adventure, Robin Hood adventure that, that is in his own mind. It's not really a parody. It's like Robin Hood is imagined by Jonathan Winters,
Right.
Which is also a big thing that appealed to me as a writer too, where you can take these, you don't have to be, if you write a story about Sherlock Holmes, for example, which you can, and everyone did, you don't have to be married to the traditional way you look at Sherlock Holmes. You could put him in a Superman outfit or, whatever,
Right.
It frees you up a little bit to when you're trying to do genre kind of things to not have to think about it the way people expect you to think about it.
Sure. I find interesting. It's probably stupid of me to expect different, but when I spoke with Jim Turner, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
First of all, one of my favorite episodes, just because the man's energy is.
He's great.
Holy shit.
He's one of the few people I've met. Well, of course I worked with him too, but he's a comic genius. I mean, he's really underappreciated when he gets going. I mean, honest to God, he did this thing. My stomach was hurting. I was laughing so hard in one of his solo shows, and it's just out of. And his humor comes out of like a this weird pure place of like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that. I love when I get somebody in who when I asked him, I was like, because you never know what anybody's influences are. I was like, hey, did you listen to Fire Sign? Because people do often try, and he didn't. He like
No.
me was a person who didn't listen to Fire Sign growing up. It takes me a bit to get going on Fire Sign because it's not. You have to listen so actively. Same as Jonathan Winters. So I was, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that two people in the same, who've been in the same group have different influences. I want to know though, did you discover Fire Sign in college like everybody else? Like, what's your
Oh
experience?
yeah. That's where I discovered them. And,
Yeah.
and I loved them. Another thing about them too is like, they were hugely influenced by the Goon Show,
Yes.
which I tried to listen to. I don't like it. I
Sure.
really kind of hated it. But I like Spike Milligan too. I've heard other things by him. But Goon Show is like, oh man, I don't know what that is, but I can't understand what they're doing.
Right.
But anyway, it's neither here nor there, I guess. But and also Dan Coffey and I from the Ducks were both into radio.
Mm-hmm.
So that of course, I'd be interested in Fire Sign Theater for that very reason, because I used to love. Because my parents, I guess, like Jack Benny, and because I found out just that whole period of radio really appeals to me, like radio dramas and radio theater, and radio dramas they're almost a parody before you even parody them,
Right.
So I got into Dan Coffey and I. We're the ones that sort of like were instrumental, I think, in pushing Duck's Breath into going more into radio too, because we both
Interesting.
like doing it. And Dan Coffey, of course, he's got that radio voice, which is oozes insincerity. It's kind of amazing.
There's not a lot of well, I won't say there's not a lot, but I don't think there's a lot of sketch groups or comedy groups to where the link is obvious, because again, I mean, hell, you've got theater spelled the same way Fire Sign does too, which is, I think, great. I think that's great. But there's just, I don't know, it's to me feels like an obvious link, despite, not everybody in the group being a Fire Sign fan, but it's also in a way where there's nothing about Duck's Breath to me. I was telling Jim the same thing. I was like, it's a more approachable version. I can track everything that's happening on your records and find it all funny, whereas it takes me a bit with Fire Sign. I love Fire Sign, but it is, again, a different type of mental investment, where this is just like blows over me. I'm like, oh shit, I love it. And it's so different, but.
Well, they had more of a literary approach to their things, I think, than we did. I mean, they like to have like the, I'm trying to think. Oh, they like jokes based on the radio itself. Like, they had that, I forget what it is, like the talking signs in, I think, their first record. Mm-hmm. Or the highway signs, and they're going by, and as they're going, they have that Doppler effect of the signs talking as they're going. Mm-hmm. And it was like, which is not even a joke, really. It's just sort of like a weird thing, which you can tell, like they were like, drug addled and so they're a lot more druggy and like there's a lot of like wordplay and puns and that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you have to think for a second to get the joke, which is why they reward repeated listening.
For sure.
But our humor is much more vaudeville, if you will, than theirs was, or actually closer to burlesque even and they're more vaudeville.
That's fair. Was your first record self-released, self-produced, all that stuff?
Oh, yeah, and well, we did it on, God, I can't even remember anymore. I thought we had a record deal with who's the one that do all the re-releases now?
Rhino.
Yeah, I think it was a Rhino.
And
maybe it was the second one. I can't remember.
Okay.
Neither one of them did anything, so it's just. but I don't think comedy records do much anyway, unless they're the First Family or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Come out of nowhere and go nowhere.
I am coincidentally speaking with one of the few people still around who was on that record, and she has like a line on it today.
Who's that?
Her name at the time was Sarah Dolly, and she's like, I'm not even sure what part I am on it, and I had to listen. And I'm like, I think you're Ethel Kennedy. So but she's got one line, and I'm like, screw it, I don't care if you've only got one line. I love that record. I'm fascinated with its weird trajectory. Let's talk about it.
Well, yes, it's so weird. And poor Von Meter, like,
Oh God, yeah. Although I interviewed his widow, and you might more think, oh, poor his widow.
oh yeah, it seemed like this guy he created all his own problems, really.
A little bit. At least eventually.
If your career is based on an impersonation of John F. Kennedy, this.
It had a limited lifetime,
Yeah,
no matter
exactly.
what. Like, how far was that going to go? Maybe a second term, But
Like my George Bush impression, I just nobody cares anymore,
my Reagan is doing gangbusters still. Couldn't tell you why. So I would like you to tell me, take the wonderful world of Jonathan Winters and tell people, let's say they don't even know who he is, which sadly is likely. Why give this album a listen as a first listen to get into Jonathan Winters?
Be hard to say. I guess if you'd have to, if you know who he is, then you should listen to it because it's quintessential Jonathan Winters. It's sort of like the essence of him right there on that record, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And either you think he's funny or you don't, And
Yeah. And hey, there's no character he's trying to do to suck you in. It is very pure him and all his ideas.
well, I'll say it's educational
Mm-hmm.
in that I think that what you can do with humor and with one voice,
For sure.
if you're like a person who wants to be an actor or wants to be in comedy or just wants to expand your horizons as to what humor is,
Yeah.
what comedy is. I mean, it's like the guy was a pioneer. He was he paved the way. He was the first to do this kind of thing, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there were like wacky guys and vaudeville and
Sure.
burlesque and stuff, but he was really I think he was the first. He paved the way for for nobody else dared to do what he did, except maybe in England. I guess you'd have like wacky bits,
Sure.
But he was the first and maybe the only guy who did this kind of stuff. Well, I guess Richard Pryor, would be another example.
Oh man.
Very similar, actually, when you think about
Yeah.
it, to Jonathan Winters. His stuff is personal,
Yes.
but not therapeutic, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm now wondering, now that I'm looking at the list of sound effects, which includes spaceship, dice rolling, radiation guns,
Yes.
scurrying groundhog, but there's also one that is simple that maybe we take for granted now, which is football cheer. Which did
yes,
did
he
the
was-
man originate the whole idea of going into
I think
a
so.
mic?
I think that was him. It was that was like I was very impressed with that, and also the little they used to do people tiptoeing.
It's so good, and it had you don't think, oh, somebody must have originated that, but I guess I will if there's anybody out there who knows of somebody before this, great, but I mean it's specifically called out on the back of the record as a novelty part of it. It's interesting.
And also the arrows he used to do. He did the arrows.
Yes. They're so good. That, and even like later on when there's I don't remember if it's supposed to be a grenade or something else, but just that whistle, slight pause, and then it's beautiful. It is a beautiful bit of sound effect work with his damn mouth. Like, it's insane to me. Merle, I appreciate you doing this show.
Sure.
I would be happy to have you back if you'd be up for it. No pressure. Why don't you this is going to come out in quite some time, so I apologize. It's going to be a few weeks.
Quite all right.
Tell people where they can find you, your stuff, if there's anything coming
there's
up.
Nothing coming up right now. I'm kind of retired. I'm actually working on a long story about flying saucers.
Ooh, wonderful.
So that sort of would be kind of funny, but not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it would be funny. It's kind of like a history of flying saucers.
Love it.
And I'm also working on a thing with Jim.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have launching a website soon, I hope. He has this character called Sterling Delzell,
Uh-huh.
who's like a kooky right-wing guy. He's got many conspiracy theories about reptoids and that sort of thing. So basically, these are excerpts from his long-running talk show that nobody's heard.
God.
And
my God.
So I'm trying to get a website. But basically, it's like the best of Sterling Delzell, and that's sort of like the. But Jim is very busy right now. He's trying to help prevent Trump from being reelected.
Fair. Thank you, Jim. Then, my God.
So once he just does that, we'll get back to this this other project.
I realized the other day I felt like a dummy. We were talking about Will Rogers on the show. The episode hasn't come out yet.
Another guy that vaudeville made. His whole style
absolutely
came out of that.
And they had the guest had brought up something that I guess I had forgotten, which was he had a fairly famous fake run for the presidency, including
that's right, yeah.
His vice presidents were the Marx Brothers at one point. That might have been his second campaign. But and I'm fascinated with fake presidential campaigns. And then somebody
W.C. Fields too.
Oh, thank you. There we go. There's another one. Also, Gracie Allen, but then Jim Turner. I mean, come on.
Oh,
Randy
that's
at the
right,
Redwoods.
Randy. Yeah.
So I'm like, holy shit, I can't not include Randy at the Redwoods in there. So there are more than people realize, and it's a weird subculture, and it's all meant to just shit on an entire system, and I love it. I'm fascinated with that.
Of course, Pat Paulson. He's the king.
Oh God, I love Pat Paulson so much. He
was very funny.
Oh boy, I'm still waiting to interview his son on the show. I'm hoping at some point that happens. And maybe he'll send me some of their wine. Why would you not? How would I not want Paulson wine? I mean, come on now. Merle, thank you again for doing this show.
Sure, my pleasure. It was great.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of StolenDress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klom. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. You can email us at podcast@comedyonvinyl.com. You can also send snail mail to StolenDress Entertainment, P.O. Box 805, Burbank, California, 91503. Subscribe to Comedy on Vinyl on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It helps. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Comedy on Vinyl, or find everything in one place at comedyonvinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit standuprecords.com for all your comedy needs and tune in to the new Stand Up Records channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast. Visit StolenDress.com to listen to our other podcasts, watch videos, and imbibe freely of our multimedia content going back 15 plus years. StolenDress Entertainment.
Hey, it's my turn. Ah!